I'd like to quickly show you today a couple of the features from a new application that's come out called Sherlock, and it's perfect for iOS developers. And what it enables me to do is gives some extra features to the simulator. So let me run through this quickly and explain what we've got here. In this simulator, I've got an application with the main view, which is represented by this green background, and I've loaded in 5 subviews, and those 5 subviews all have a red background, and at the moment I have them all set their constraints so they stack on one on top of each other. So as you can see, they start at the top of the screen. Now you can't see a gap in between them, and we're going to fix that. Okay, so let's say that one of the things I want to do here is I want to be able to tweak the layout of my application in real time, but I don't want to keep changing numbers and guessing the layout in Xcode and then rerunning the application, and I also don't want to have to design it all ahead of time. And one of the things that Sherlock lets me do is adjust all these values in real time. So let me go ahead and show that to you. I'm just going to go up to the Sherlock icon here, and I'm going to activate the inspector. And when I activate the inspector, you'll notice that I can now select things within the simulator. So here are my 5 stacked views that you can see, and then I've got the background view and a button down here. So now let's go ahead and select one of the items. I'm going to select this first view at the top here, and it's going to bring up this panel. And as you can see, there's a lot of settings in here that you can change and play around with. I'm not going to go through them all today, but I think a lot of these will be familiar to you from the Xcode view editor. So what we're going to do is go to this second icon, and you can see that here it's showing me the sizing plus my constraints, and these are what we're going to play with, right? Because we all know how much fun it is to work with constraints in Xcode. So one of the things I want to do is I want to figure out the right size for each of these items and have a gap in between each one so that it lays out nicely on this screen. And I also don't want them to start at the top of the display here at 00 behind the status bar, right? So what I can do is, the first thing I can go in and say, okay, so I've got this first view here, and its constraint right now is set to be at the 0, the top of the display. Well, I don't want that, so I'm going to move it down. So I'm going to set to 100. Now when I do that, notice that not only has it updated the view that I've moved, but it's updated the locations of all the other views below them. And let me show you why. So the second view, as you can see, the second view has a constraint that says the top of the view starts at the bottom of the first view, right? So that's why they're updating. But let's say that I want a gap in there of, say, 15. So if I put 15, you can now see that I've got a gap between these two views, right? So let's go ahead and do the next one as well. So we've got the third one here. Again, the third one is set to constrain to the end of the second view, so I'm going to put 15 in this one as well, and then I'm going to go to the fourth one, and on the fourth one I'm going to go in and same thing again. I'm going to go through, let's find it here to the bottom. I'm going to go edit, and I'm going to say 15, and then on the last view as well I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say 15. So now I've got a gap, a nice gap in between each of my views here, but clearly it's not filling the screen how I want it to. So what I'm going to do now is I think I need to adjust the size, right? So if I go in and edit the height of the first one and say 150, again, notice it's updating and recalculating my view for me on each of these, right? So I'm going to go 120. I think 120 is going to be the number that I want. So I'm just going to put 120 on each of these. And notice how quickly I can manipulate my views and try out new layouts. This is just fantastic. I don't have to keep stopping and going back to Xcode and rerunning the application. So now I think I've got something here that I want to start to work with. So that's the constraint setup. Now if I go back over here, I'm going to select the first one. Again, notice you can edit some of the settings. So if I want to just change the background color like this, I can just go in and change it there, and this is great. I like to use just these really contrasting solid colors when I'm setting up my constraints and my views so that I can see the actual layout. I'm not too concerned about the content that I'm going to put in there at this time. I just want to make sure that these sub views are constrained and laying out the way I want them to. Okay, So we've got those in there. Now if I go over to the layer, you can see that not only can I adjust the border, I can adjust the shadow and other options as well. So if I put in a corner radius, I can put a corner radius of 20, okay? And now I've got that sort of typical curved rectangular view that you're used to seeing in a lot of iOS applications these days. In fact, let's make it 30, right? Now let's go back to 20. So there it is there. Now let's say that I want to move it in from the edges. Again, I could keep guessing these numbers in Xcode, or I could just play with it in real time, right? So we're going to go back over to our constraints, and on the left I'm going to say, you know what, I think I want it to be in 15 from the left, and I think I also want it to be 15 from the right. So, oops, my bad. Should be minus 15. There we go. So, this is just a quick example of some of the things you can do with this Sherlock application. It's just an amazing application, and I like the irony that they called it Sherlock, hoping that one day Apple will take this and actually build it into the simulator. But I hope that they make a decent amount of money from it before Apple does that, because it's well worth it. And so you can see how I can go in and change my layouts in real time, and then I can take these numbers, these calculations that I've got in here, and I can take them back to the code in Xcode and greatly reduce the cycle time for some of my basic design layout. I'll be going more into this application in the future, so keep an eye on peterwitham.com for more videos, or on my YouTube channel, which you will also find a link on peterwitham.com.